Welcome to Life-Changing Challengers, the podcast where passion meets purpose. I'm Brad Minus, your host, guiding you through stories of transformation and triumph, from endurance feats to overcoming adversity. Our guests defy the limits and inspire action. Ready to ignite your desire and incinerate your barriers? Join us. Your journey to the extraordinary begins now. And welcome back to another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. As always, I'm Brad Minus and I'm your host, and extremely excited to have author Martina Gruppo with me today. Hey, Martina, how you doing?
I'm really happy to be here. Hi, Brad. Thank you very much for inviting me onto your show.
Oh, the honor and the privilege is all mine, and I appreciate you joining me. So, Martina, just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, maybe where you grew up? What was the complement of your family? And what was it like to be Martina as a kid?
Okay, well, first of all, the surname kind of gives it away. So I'm half Irish and half Italian, but I was born in the UK. My dad died when I was very, very young. So the Italian part came about more that we used to go to Italy quite a lot on holiday. So, that sort of remained, that grew that Italian part of me, if you like. I have a brother. Childhood was pretty privileged, I guess. I went to private school. My mum worked really, really hard to send us to private schools and making sure that we got the best education. I think that's what she felt was really important. In terms of what was a childhood? Yeah, I mean, when I say privileged, I think in terms of going to Italy, foreign holiday in the 70s, getting on a plane, being taken up to the cockpit to chat to the pilot and things like that, things that you just don't even hear of. It was when travel was interesting. It was when travel was a joy. In terms of that, we were very privileged. When I was younger, I think part of my personality or part of the way that my character formed was through becoming very much a people pleaser. I was the eldest child and I wanted to make sure that everything that was possible to be done could be done. If my mum wanted ironing done or a roast dinner cooked or anything like that, I would put myself forward because I wanted to be the person that was praised and was looking out for everybody else, which we will come about later on in life. I think that's how I ended up in the mess that I ended up in, if you like. And I think when you take on the personality of somebody who puts everybody else first, even if it's about buying presents, other people are more important, put it that way. So I did a lot. I wasn't particularly academic. I was very, very bright. I was amazing at creative writing and things like that. And I was also really good at languages, French and Italian I studied, but I was rubbish at exams. I mean, dreadful at exams. I just couldn't do them at all. And also maths. Maths was a bit of a nemesis for me too. But generally speaking, I enjoyed school. I quite liked school. I quite liked studying and, but I just wasn't focused on studying. I had my mind set on travel. I wanted to do something where I would incorporate travel. And that was probably because from a very young age, we'd gone over to Italy, to the north of Italy, so much. I felt that there was, I don't know, something out there, a bigger world out there. There was something really attractive about traveling and about being with other people. By the time I got to 19, I was pretty sure I didn't want to go off to college or university or anything like that. I just wasn't interested in it at that stage. And I had a very key plan. And the key plan was to go abroad, learn a language, study the language, then go to another country, study the language until I was fluent in it, and then come back with the idea of having 2 or 3 fluent languages under my belt and then open a creche, weirdly. I mean, now when I think about it, that's just what I wanted to do because I loved kids and I loved travel and I loved languages. So I felt that all of this could all be, carried on into a sort of business way. And then I met somebody in England who physically beat basically, and I was with him and he was an older guy for a couple of years. And yeah, it was a very unpleasant relationship.
Okay, before we
So
delve into that, let me just ask you a vocabulary quick question. What's a crush?
a creche is like opening a creche is I had this vision of people needed to go out to work, and they needed, especially in a place I didn't actually mention. I'm so sorry. I grew up in the most amazing city in the southwest of England, which is Bath. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a
Yeah.
Roman city, and it's gorgeous. It's like, I suppose the equivalent is like Florence, but it's a really beautiful, amazing country, amazing city, Roman city. And there's a lot of French, Spanish, Italian sort of, the foreigners that go there and set up businesses and things like that. And in my head, when I was 17, 18, I thought, well, they have children, so they're going to need to put them somewhere. So it's like a daycare center, I suppose.
If I say a child
Yeah.
care.
So my idea was that I would have this really amazing place that would be an international place, and I would be the one that could speak all the languages and would be able to run all of this. And look at me, and
I
I
love that idea. I think it's wonderful.
honestly, I seriously, Brad, I look back now and I'm thinking at 17, 18, where did this come from? The idea. I think a huge part of me always wanted to have children. That was my goal, was to have children. And I felt that this could incorporate a love of languages, a love of travel, and of course, a love of children.
Yeah. So yeah, you mentioned that you were a people pleaser and that you wanted to take care of the family, but we didn't know how many are actually in the family. How many do you brothers and sisters?
One brother, just one brother. He was a younger
Okay.
brother.
Okay.
He is a younger brother.
But you're the one that wanted to take care of him, and you did.
No, I'm holding something back, actually, which is my mother and I didn't have a great relationship.
Okay.
And there was an element of alcoholism there, I would say. And so I kind of took on a more maternal role, in that I was the one who was covering up for what she was doing. I think when you have to deal with that kind of a situation at home, then what you end up doing is you compensate for what you see as lacking. And that becomes a part of your intrinsic personality, doesn't it? It's covering up.
Yeah.
It's not allowing other people to see the cracks or the less than pretty makeup of where you are in your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Just it's kind of escapism, but into, almost like into the fire instead of, instead of somewhere that's a little more dreamy. You went into the fire first.
And as a child, you're not supposed to put yourself in the role of an adult. It's
Yeah.
not really fair. And I think it stays with you for a long, long time. So that was quite hard. But I went against all of their wishes, everybody's, including my beloved stepfather, whom I adored, and set off at 19 and went to Italy. And yeah, and then it kind of all exploded. I think I was only supposed to go there for a year, but I'd managed to get out of the clutches of the awful boyfriend who used to beat me up. And I'd gone over there. But, when I went over to live in Rome, it was as if somebody had gone, oh, this is what enjoying yourself is supposed to be about. This is, look, people don't hit you, and you can walk around. And at school I was always too tall, too skinny, too lanky. My lips were too big, my eyes were too slanty. I was always too something. And suddenly in Italy they were going, oh, ciao bella, and it was all like, I was received really well. And so suddenly I was like, wow, this is seriously the place for me. This is amazing. And yeah, it was really fun and really good. And I had a really good time. And I think I came back to England and everybody was saying, oh, so, when are you coming back? No, I'm not coming back. I'm staying over there. It's amazing. And I made a life for myself I only went for 1 year and I stayed for 6. And of course, it was during that time that I met somebody who was to later destroy my life almost. I met the narcissist for the first time. I fell head over heels in love. And remember, narcissism was just nothing then. We're talking so many decades ago. Nobody had ever heard of it or knew anything about it. And also, I think that when you're much younger, when you're in your 20s, that's all covered up by how happy you are and how things are happening. So you don't see, when you're young, you forgive things or you just move on. And I was having the most incredibly hedonistic, amazing lifestyle, out partying, all the rest of it, everything that came with it. And it was phenomenal. And I was in love and behaved stupidly the way in love 20-something-year-olds behave. This is it. This is forever.
Yeah,
But
I get that. And in narcissism, and I've had a couple other episodes, and we'll go ahead and we'll link to those. But and just like you said, he's a little conceited, and if he is conceited, as long as he could back it up, right?
exactly.
So, we've got people in our government and things that are all over the place right now. And it's one thing to be a narcissist and be conceited and truly believe who you are and what you are.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to project that out and not be able to back it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's most of the time we call a narcissist to somebody that can't back it up. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
they're this way, they're that way. But they can talk the talk, but they can't walk the walk. And then they truly believe that they're this amazing person, but it turns out they're really not. And then so far, what I've uncovered, and we're going to get into your story here in a minute, is that a lot of those, they make up for it with some of the more awful things that you've been through. So let's go into that. So let's give this guy a name. You don't have to give a real name if you don't want to, but let's just so you can go through and you can actually call him a name. Like I said, you don't have to use his real name if you don't want.
No, I don't. Just call him the narc.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I'm good with that, fine.
But
Okay.
The first time around in my 20s, he was glorious, tall, amazing. He was everything I could possibly have dreamed of. He was just like, this is my fantasy man come to life. And yeah, we went along with it for 2 or 3 years, 2 years maybe, and it was wonderful. But there is a part inside of me which is very much my mother's daughter, if you like, and there was a part of me that was thinking, I need to go to university. I need to get an education. I need to find a career. And my stepfather was always my father, who I refer to him as my dad in the book. And he is, for all intents and purposes, my father, instilled in me the most incredible work ethic. So, having parties and doing all sorts of things and everything else is fine for a while. But there was a part of me that was like tapping, going, come on, you're getting towards 30 now, or 26, whatever it was that I was. And so I presented this to him and said, okay, let's go. Let's go back to England. You could learn English. You can find a job. What would you like to do? And he just went, no, I'm not going back to England. That doesn't appeal to me at all. And I was broken by this because I just thought we were going to live happily ever after and it was going to be amazing. So I went back to England, enrolled in university, got myself an economics and French degree, European economics and French degree.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. I was no more mature than,
Hey, you don't have to, I'm right there with you. Yes, I did my bachelor's right out of high school. I did take a couple of years off between sophomore and junior year. Then went back, then went to the military. And then at 26, I went to graduate school and got my MBA, which is why I'm impressed about you giving an economics degree, because the economics and stats were like my two worst freaking classes during my MBA.
They were mine. I think I was pushed through those classes. But congratulations on having an MBA. But on achieving an MBA. But isn't it weird how at the time at 26, I felt so much older than everybody else. And you're called a mature student. There was nothing mature about me at all. And I was also going through real heartache. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm so heartbroken. I'm never going to meet anybody. This is going to be awful, and all the rest of it. I'll fast forward. I did get over the heartbreak eventually. I put it to one side and just thought, right, moving on. I talk a lot more about it in the book. about what happened between, how I went through university, how I got through that, and then how I proceeded on to the next parts. And I did see him one more time, but, that is for the book. It was, because I spent part of my degree in Paris, and he flew in to Paris because he was on his way on holiday somewhere, probably paid for by somebody else, and rang me up on the off chance. So yes, this intelligent woman here actually fell for a ridiculous booty call in Paris when I should have been, and thinking that this was again a step towards us having a constructive relationship. Oh, so naive. Anyway, when I was 30 around 30, I was working in a company where I was using my Italian and my French in an audio company. I met my first husband, and he wasn't really for me, but at 30 you feel like you're past it. Anyway, I thought I need to get married, and I wanted to have children desperately. I'm afraid it ended really badly after 3 years, because he wasn't with me anymore. He was with somebody else, and I was suffering from severe infertility problems, endometriosis and things like that. And I had a miscarriage. I miscarried twins. And then everybody said, "Oh, don't worry. That means, thank you. That means that, you can have children." Actually, it meant I couldn't. It was a fluke. And he then proceeded we were going to go through IVF, but he chose to cancel it because he was busy having an affair with somebody else. And then he proceeded to try and take everything from me financially. But as his barrister stood up in court and said, she's not entitled to anything because it's not like she could have children or anything.
Your court system is just as effed up as ours.
Yeah, but
Wow.
the only thing you can hope for, Brad, is what goes around comes around. It hurt massively. And it was all I'd ever wanted, was to have kids. And so then I was alone. And of course, it's weird, isn't it? But when you're in your 30s and you're alone, you really feel as though you're never going to meet anybody. You're never going to find anybody that likes you or wants you for who you are. I just took a sort of long, hard look at myself, and I was an office manager in an engineering consultancy. And I just thought, is this it? I went for a job interview for a better job, and I didn't get it. And I felt that somebody was saying to me, you shouldn't be getting another job doing the same thing. Remember, I said I didn't follow a particularly conventional path.
Yeah. No.
Ready for this?
Okay, let's do it.
I decided I was going to go and volunteer in a country where I could put some of the love that was missing from not having children. And the country that I chose was up in the mountains of Miraflores in Central America, in Nicaragua.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you'd have been safer in Africa. But I got to hand it to you, though. I mean, if that's what you want to do, if you wanted to surround yourself with kids and protect them, and that deep motherly protection that you sounded like you had in you, and you wanted to fulfill that and do good at the same time, it obviously was the way to go.
Well,
so what happened?
I trusted kind of destiny and fate and things like that. And I said, right, well, I will go and teach up there. So I got myself a teaching qualification and went up and taught English to the guides that were up there to help the community and stuff. But that wasn't supposed to be what I was going to be doing ultimately. So ultimately, I had a friend who came over, and we went down onto the west coast of Nicaragua, and I got a little bit homesick then. And she said to me, you need to come down here at the weekends, get away from the mountains and just come down here. Then that will, rejuvenate you and stuff. Well, when I was down there, I would talk to backpackers. And when I was talking to the backpackers and everything, I said, well, why don't you come back up with me to the community and see what it's like? And of course, backpackers are desperate to find where nobody else has been to. So then I started organizing for groups to go up and stay in the community, and then they were paying the community members directly, and the community members
Look
were
at you. Look at you. Like increasing economic activity into a community.
But wait, they then said how much they liked the coffee. So I then thought, yeah, now what we could do is sell the coffee from that the women are producing in this community. Look at your face. The women are producing this coffee up there. I think that we should be selling this to bars and restaurants down in Leon in on the West Coast. So that's what I started to do. So I would put it all into a rucksack, take it down there, talk to all the different places, bring down the coffee. And then somebody saw me and said, "Oh, I know what you are. You're the coffee fairy." And I thought, I looked at this person, he was a friend of mine, and I just thought, that's a really good name for a company. So then I decided that what I was going to do on my own was export the coffee from the northern mountains of Nicaragua to the UK and sell it and start my own coffee company and cut out the middle.
I think that's fantastic. And it even sounds even better to me because I'm one of those coffee connoisseurs myself. I'm a big coffee drinker, so I'm already like my mouth salving just thinking about you're getting coffee from the plant. You know, people that are pulling it out. And were these green or were they already roasted?
No. Green beans. You've got to ship green beans. It was a whole new learning curve for me. I had no clue about coffee. And they said that they wanted better educational facilities for their kids. And I said, okay, you sell me your coffee at a good price. I will get you a good price for your coffee. But also, I will do talks in the UK in schools and colleges. And any funds that they raise, I will bring them back to you and build you some schools, which I did.
You're the the teacher coffee fairy godmother.
If you Google coffee fairy or my name and coffee, I can't remember it's my name. There's a talk where it's about 10 years ago, I think. And I was doing this talk at this fair where I was ranting about ethical labeling because they used to put things like soil association and fair trade stickers on these things. And I was getting really angry saying, oh, my farmers can't afford this certification, but their coffee's twice as good as the stuff that, is actually out there. And these are all just money that you pay in order to get that certification, right. And they're part of cooperatives. By the end of it, but it was a struggle because I was on my own, and I did get a business partner, but he just was useless. It didn't work. He was in for the money, and he was probably very good at doing money, but I was more about the ethical side of things.
And I think that's fantastic because, just like you said, you got to pay money to get the fair trade license. You got to get money for the GMO license. You got to pay money for it to be organic and all this stuff. And yours was because you literally were getting it from people that were pulling it off the plant and giving it to you.
Exactly. And I did go out and pick the coffee myself. Thankless task. Awful thing. So I left that to them because I'm not going to do everything, seriously. So and it won awards. It won Great Taste Awards back in the UK, and it was sold in Harvey Nichols. It was sold in some really big places, but probably the best thing was I invested over 23,000 into the communities, and I would argue with airport staff about taking bagfuls of secondhand clothes back and say, you shouldn't be charging me for these are going to the community, how dare you, and all the rest of it. Nobody ever listened to me, but it was good. And there I was recording a radio program, don't ask me how, Brad, but recording a radio program for the BBC food program all about coffee. I think that's still out there somewhere. And I get an email and the narc is back. Yeah, I can see your face just going, oh no. So I had tried dating, and I had tried a few things, here and there about online dating, but and I'd let somebody down who was probably perfect for me, but I just wasn't ready for him, that kind of thing. And I lost out. But anyway, he emailed me, and I immediately responded saying, "Oh my God, I'm so happy you found me. I've been waiting forever for this." And literally like a ripe piece of fruit fell into his lap. And yeah, that was the start of 11 of the hardest years of my life. Yeah, awful. Just, I said to you before that I was with somebody who physically abused me.
Right.
Who beat
Before
me
you
up.
went to Italy the first time.
Nothing compares to what a narcissist does to you. Nothing compares to the damage they do, the long-term damage, the mental and psychological takedown of a person is something that very few people, unless you're actually in it. I find it very frustrating when people say, "Oh yeah, I was with a narcissist." And I've now had to take a few deep breaths and go, "Oh, were you?" Whereas before, I'd straight away say, "Oh my God, you poor thing." But now I realize that they're just labeling somebody who maybe is a bit of an, excuse my language, but a bit of an arsehole. And they're just saying he's, a narcissist. No, he's not. We've all got that capability of being a bit of an idiot inside of us. It doesn't make you a narcissist. Because you tell a lie doesn't mean you're gaslighting somebody. And I'm tired, because when you're in it, when you're in the middle of that cycle of really horrific abuse, which you don't even know, of manipulation, let's not even use the word abuse. Let's say when you're in a cycle of constantly being manipulated and also constantly being controlled, you don't see a way out. You can't see. And you've just listened to me talk about my childhood, talk about the way that I was, the fact that I took off to Italy, took off to Nicaragua. I wasn't a wilting wallflower.
No.
I was feisty, independent, sometimes quite, sometimes I could be quite strident and forthright in some of my opinions or some of the things that I did and said and how I behaved. But I wasn't afraid. And I am the type of person that they love. They don't go for the weak, the ones that stay at home. They seek you out because you have something that they aren't. And yes, he came back into my life, and I thought, oh my God, this is my time. Finally, my time has come. My time to be happy. My time to have what everybody else has and talks about. This is somebody who knew me when I was younger and is going to love me, really love me. I couldn't have been more wrong.
So, all right, you go over to Italy at 19, you spend some time, you meet this guy. Then you figure out what you want. Then you kind of decide what you want to do with your life. And you're like, "Hey, listen, come with me." He says no. And he's gone. You're heartbroken as you're going through school, but you get it through.
The one thing I missed out saying was all that time beforehand, I carried that. That was my fault for leaving Italy. That was my fault for leaving him. That was me that walked away. Therefore, I was responsible for having broken up that relationship.
Instead of you realizing this was mutual, you wanted one thing, he wanted another, and that was just the way it was. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just no. I mean, in reality, that was the thing. But you actually said no because you wanted to go get an education, and he wasn't ready to follow you. You left, yeah. So therefore, you would put it in your head that it was your fault. I get it.
So for years afterwards, as far as I was concerned, my responsibility, it was me. It was down to me finishing it. So he was on a home run when he met me again, because I was then so determined that this time it wouldn't fail, at what personal cost. So no matter how bad things got, no matter how dreadful it was, I constantly said to myself, I have to make this work because I walked out of it the last time. This is on me to make this work, until it nearly killed me.
Meanwhile, he sees that not only do you now have an education, you also have a thriving business. You've got a ton of experience. You've been around, you've been in 3 separate continents by this point.
Yeah.
And now, now you're, whereas before you might have been young, you weren't, you didn't have an education, you were kind of working hand to mouth the whole bit. He was like, okay, that's too easy. But for him to get back with you to now get a portion of what you have, that becomes the challenge. That's why they don't go. That's why you're right. That's why they don't go over to the meek, because it's too easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was as if he just landed back on a load of comfortable cushions. Yeah. And I met him and he wasn't working. And then I replayed what I'd done in my childhood, which was put him first above anything to do with any needs, wants, desires of my own. He was up here. I mean, if I just tell you this, I can't wait to see your face when I just say this to you, but we were together for 11 years and I think he worked a total of 1.
I don't understand that, because here in America, there are definitely people like that, okay? But very rarely. The guys then I talk to, there's more of the struggle when both of the couple, if they both work, it becomes more of a struggle if the man is not the one making more of the money, doing the providing. Very rarely do you find guys that don't want to work or are willing to not work if the wife is working.
Oh my God, I held down 4 jobs at a time.
Yeah. So, I mean, that already, now he might have been an anomaly as far as the Italian culture goes. I am not sure. You'd have to know.
Yeah, I'm going to wait for part. I think that there is a culture in Italy that has a streak of laziness running through it. Okay. And I'm going to save that for another time because it's quite yeah. Let's not offend a load of people.
Well, I mean, I don't really care about that. Offense is in the eye of the offended. So if people want to be offended by it, then they can look in the mirror. But what I'm saying is, prior to us starting this recording, when we had talked about that I had been to Italy just recently, all the places that we went into for espresso or for food, most of them were ran by women. There were a couple of them that the chefs were male, but most of it was run by women.
I think there's a bit of a change in the culture there. There's happening, that women are working more. But one of the things that really, it's very sad, there's very much a cultural difference. When I go out in England, I see women of all ages out together. I see groups of women of all different ages, like women in their 50s, women in their 40s, women in their 30s. I see men and women out together, just not just couples, but all sorts. Whereas in Italy, it's very much if you go out, you see men, and then the only women you see will be the ones with babies or with their mothers or mother-in-laws. It's a huge, huge difference in terms of what's allowed over there. But honestly, we should save that for another one because I find this is where the narcissistic personality comes in, because I really struggled. I often asked him, why aren't you more dynamic? Why aren't you trying to find things to do? For me, it was just inconceivable. But the excuses that he came out with, because he did come over to live in England for a while, for 4 years, we ended up staying in England because he had nothing in Italy. There was no reason for him to stay in Italy because honestly, It was much better for him to be back in England. And I did everything and I paid for the rent and, I had the car and I was still running the coffee business, and everything he latched on to me. He was a parasite. He was a parasite, and he would complain about things that weren't going. Oh God, yeah. When It's really hard because it's as if you were never good enough. I was never good enough. Literally never good enough. Whatever I did, there was always something wrong, but it was said with a smile, or it was said and it takes you down. When you're in it, you don't really see what's actually happening to you. This year, somebody asked me about my house, this house that I bought over there. Well, after my father died, he knew that I wanted to buy a house in England and told me to buy a house near where we were. It becomes more evident in the book, how that all panned out. And I bought this house and took a video around, it was all, I love interior design. I love doing places up and refurbishing and all that kind of thing. People say I'm good at it, which is very nice, but I like a lovely home and I like certain things. I don't like clutter and things like that. And this house, he was filming me as I was walking around it. And it was all to be redone and everything else. And I had visions and I could see where it was all going. Brad, I look like I'm empty. Even though I'm smiling, I look brittle and broken and hunched. And this year I showed somebody who stayed with me because I ran a bed and breakfast in the summer out of my place. Of course I did. I know.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. If we were talking about my story, I have things like that as well. I understand, but I just think it's amazing that you have found ways to, first of all, make money. Second of all, but these are very personal things. You have to be in touch with people.
Yes.
And
he hasn't taken that out of me.
No,
I think it's very easy to become cynical and jaded, and I don't trust very easily. Unfortunately, that's a huge thing. And living in Italy has not helped that at all. They are not good people to trust, generally speaking, the ones that I've come across. But this year I had somebody staying with me, a lovely French woman, and she said to me, "Do you have any photographs of your house when, before it became like this?" And I showed her this video. And I could see her face was really, really shocked. And she said to me, "Tomorrow we're going to do a new video." And I was like, "Oh, really? Are we?" And she said, "Yes, because if you're selling it, you need to have a new video." So while it's looking beautiful with everything in bloom and all the rest of it, I burst into tears when I saw the video. He then had a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, he put the two videos together. And I put it at the bottom of that Substack page, "Take the photo." And it's called "Take the Photo" because in that moment, you are never going to capture again what you have in that moment. That's what the whole thing is about. And at the bottom of it, I put the two comparison videos. Now, both of those videos are in color, but when you watch them, the first one looks like it's in black and white. And the second one looks as though I've switched the light on. And it's amazing.
Well, I mean, coming out of that, and I've seen that as well. Like I said, I've got a couple other episodes where I've talked to people that have been in a relationship with a pure narcissist, and in seeing pictures and stuff, it'll take it out of you. And then when they finally realize, and you come back into the light, that things change. I'm just glad that you're back out of it. Let's step back just so we understand exactly. And I hate to say this because I'm not, I'm kind of I'm much of an optimist, but I'm going to go pessimistic and let's see how bad it really was. Oh. Can you give us a typical day from getting up, going back to sleep, what your life was like in the heart of your relationship with the narc?
Well, how about I talk about when I had cancer?
Okay.
So I have
if you want to go off, if you want to double down on the pessimism.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had breast cancer. I'm fully recovered now. I had breast cancer, and it was what we call in England triple negative. And triple negative tumor means that you have to have a really high dose of chemotherapy. Okay.
Oh my God.
So he didn't like hospitals. So the first time he out of 6, He came to one. He came to the first one. And in the first one, while I was being hooked up and they were trying to find a vein that would work so that they could start putting it in, this was before I had a PICC line inserted in me. He sat there and he said, "Oh, I'm just going to pop out for a cigarette." And I looked at him and said, "No, you're not. No, you cannot go out and leave me and then come back in here in this room smelling of smoke." And he was furious that I wasn't letting him go. And I just sort of turned away while they were putting the needles in. And then I turned back around and he said something else to me. And he just smiled as though the previous conversation about the cigarettes had never happened. And I sat there thinking, did I just imagine that he wanted to go out? Because he almost pretended as though it was all okay. I would come back, friends and my father took me to chemo. I had different friends who took me. So just in a typical day, I would then come back feeling quite sick. And he would have made a pot of tea and done some fancy drawings on the blackboard. Okay. Maybe lit a fire. I remember once, because when you come back after chemo, you're very hungry and you're hungry to start with. And I had made myself some food to go into the oven because he could never cook anything other than pasta. And I didn't want pasta, but I was something to go into the oven because you just want bland food, like school dinners kind of food. And I sat there for 45 minutes and I said, "Is it not hot yet?" And he hadn't switched the oven on. He said, "Well, how do I know how to switch an oven on? How do I know? You've never shown me how this works." Wait. Then what happens is the chemo starts to take effect. So then you go to bed. And he said, "Oh, I'll sleep in the spare room because it's better for you if you just deal with this." And because he wanted to finish watching his Netflix series. That the clash of the drugs and the poison in your system fighting with the anti-nausea drugs was like a pain. You can't even begin to imagine how it's like food poisoning at its worst. And I would be crying out and he would be irritated and would come in. And rather than just hold me, he would say, "Well, just explain to me what's wrong with you and what it is that you need." And you can't, explain anything. It's so, you feel so lonely when all you want is somebody just to sit there and hold your hand and look after you. And I don't mean look after you because you don't expect them to have to do anything.
I've told this on a couple of episodes, but I haven't had cancer myself, but I've been around kids, cancer kids, adults. I coached for the Lymphoma Leukemia Society for years. I've raised a lot of money for the Children's Cancer Center, which happens to have an office here in Tampa. So yeah, I've been around it. I know what that looks like. Both my parents have had some form of cancer. My mom had breast cancer. Been around it and understand it, but just the fact like that right there, that didn't have the empathy.
No.
For his wife.
No. There was, but then I would work. Because I would still be teaching in a school or I'd be sending them, and that was okay. Yeah. But he wasn't doing anything. Yeah. But he was allowing me. And and this makes me so angry because with myself I felt so bad because he wasn't going back to Italy. So I would find the money to send him back so he could have a few days with his friends. I know, but you must understand that when you're in a narcissistic relationship, they play it in such a way that you feel guilty for everything. It doesn't matter how it's turned around, but they manipulate every kind of situation. And you're thinking, God, yeah, you did do that and you have done that. Or I'm here, aren't I? I'm here with you. And if that doesn't work, they turn it around to say, well, you're not capable of loving anybody. Well, you're not capable of being in a relationship. Well, you would rather be on your own, or you would rather be in control. And I'd be thinking, I don't want to be in control. I've never wanted to be in control. I want somebody to be in control of me, which ironically it was, but I wanted it in terms of, look, babe, we're going on holiday. Yay. And you've organized everything on. Do you know, in 11 years, he never once took me out for dinner.
Yeah, that's you talking to me about it. And, you and I have just met, but I connect with people pretty fast. And I am getting, you're making me feel it. So job well done. You've been able to explain it in a way that is pissing me off, and if that's what you're going for, because I can't, that's not a man to me.
No.
I mean, that is not a man. That is a mouse. And to live off of somebody else and not make your own way in the world.
That's a parasite.
Yeah. My parents live about 40 minutes from me right now. And my dad and I just had an argument because he wants to buy me a new grill. And you know what I mean? Like where you can barbecue. Because mine was torn apart during the last hurricane that we had here. And he wants to buy me a grill. And I'm like, you don't need to, he's on a fixed income and the whole bit. And my parents are on a fixed income. Not that they're very, very middle class. This is not something that he can't afford. It's very, very simple. But we get into a disagreement. I'm like, you don't have to buy me this, blah, 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 but I want to. And it wasn't until I realized how much joy he was going to get
from doing
it, buying this for me, right? Yeah. That I turned around and said, okay, you know what I mean? And like, and I'm like, I can buy my own damn grill. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that thing. But then when I realized that, no, he's like, and then he calls me and he goes, well, I'm looking at this one. Hey, take a look at this one. Do you like this one? Did you see it's got the second burner over here? And you could just feel it coming out of his thing. And I'm like, oh my God, he's getting joy out of knowing that I'm going to get this grill. Not that he's not going to get a piece of it because, I'm going to cook him a steak once in a while, of course. But you know what I mean? And I didn't realize that. And the fact that this man was watching you go through pain, and meanwhile, you're bringing home the bacon, as we call it here in the States.
But okay, so
no idea.
Oh. So there's a cycle of abuse. Okay, so it starts off with the love bombing, which is what they do. Okay, so they're fully on into you and they hold you up here and you're the best thing that's ever happened to them, and they're the best thing that's ever happened to you. Then you go to the next stage. Now the next stage is really subtle and it's called the devalue stage. And this is where everything that you do is slowly taken apart, bit by bit, and always with that really precious, loving smile that they present. So I would go running in and saying, oh my God, I've booked this holiday. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to go here and look, we can get a week in Italy. Oh, what time's the flight? Oh, well, then we need to get to the airport. So that kind of cancels out the first day. Then we've got to be cleaning up and stuff. And then we've got to get back there. So really a week's holiday, it's only 5 days. The holiday that I have booked, I have taken time out, that I am trying to make it for both of us, has suddenly become, it's okay, and should I say, I don't know, there's so many different examples, but it's so you've got the devalue stage. So gradually I'm being taken down bit by bit. I like putting makeup on, like an eyeliner that would go slightly up there, and he would come along and go like this and wipe it off the side of my face and say, God, you've got liner there or something. Or, are you wearing that dress again? Yeah. So all of this, it's a form of making you feel less than you are. So you keep trying to be better, to do better, and it can be incredibly nasty. At its worst, I was driven to do something that I am so ashamed of. Okay, I slapped him. He said something so awful to me once, on more than one occasion. And that was his green light to act as though I was physically abusing him. So all 6'4" of him, he would back off into a corner going, get your hands down, get your hands away from me. So and because all of this was in Italian, so that's in a different language. So I was frightened of myself. So I would go and hide in the bathroom because I was like, what am I becoming? I'm becoming this awful person. And of course, it's almost like a scene from The Shining. He'd be on the other side knocking on the door because I was no good to him, hiding in a bathroom. He wanted me out, angry, hysterical. He wanted me to be railing at him so he could then play the victim. It's not just bad behavior. It's the takedown of somebody.
And do you think, because the way that you're describing it, it sounds like it is inbred, and it's like an inbred plot for him. Like it's plotted, but it's not conscious. You know, he's not going the way that you describe it. It's so fast, so quick that he's, you know, like, all right, hey, hun, we're going on this trip. We're landing in Barcelona. Then we're going to jump on this. We're going to end up in Florence. And then we're going to do this. And then he said, you know, and then it's automatic, right? Oh, well, wait, what time are we leaving? Oh, we're not leaving till noon. Well, that cancels out the first day. No, but that's great, babe. No problem. Oh, so really, you're not talking about 7 days. You're talking about 5, right? That's not like, okay, well, listen, I'm going to make sure that she understands that this is not 7 days. I'm going to make sure she understands that it's only 5 days. You know what I mean?
No.
Do you think it's something that just kind of inbred, you know, it's just kind of like, oh.
So if I then said to him exactly what you said and be like, oh my God, I've just gone, if I just reacted normally and went, I've just gone and spent time doing this, he'd be like, I'm literally just pointing this out for both of us. And so straight away, you thought, remember, in the background of all of these peaks, you know, when it becomes really nasty, is a push and a pull situation. So he's pulling you towards him and then pushing me away, pulling me towards him and pushing me away. So my head is like a ball of confusion. It is like walking in a hall of mirrors. You do not know where the next thing is going to come from. You know, I mean, it's in the book that I wrote. Oh my God. Him learning English. He never learned particularly more than enough to just get by. 4 years, you can imagine. And I'm an English teacher, you know, and he made it about, oh my God, you're so bossy. You just want to control me. You know, just give me some time. And he had my friends on his side.
No. He manipulated them as well.
Yeah. So we had people where I would go to correct something that he had for the ennesimous time, you know, sorry, that's Italian, for the 11 billionth time he had said this thing wrong. And I was correcting him. And at a dinner party, he'd be like, oh, see now, and then he'd speak in Italian. He'd be like, I can't speak anymore. He said, you've just blocked me. I can't, you know. And everybody around the table would look at me going, Martina, you're so controlling. Turned it all around. It's brilliant. It's bloody genius the way they do it. You can't fault them for how they do it, but no, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. But again, I'm just wondering, I mean, this is the way they live their lives. Do you think that, I mean, this was conscious from the get-go?
I think this was happening when we were together in our 20s. But when you're in your 20s, you are all, this is all great. You don't understand it. And it's all, everybody's having a bit of a party lifestyle. So it doesn't really matter. But as you get older, all of us want some sort of stability. You want a little bit more peace. You don't understand why everything is wrong. You know, you don't understand. I wanted boring. I wanted a husband I could rely on. And the only person I was able to rely on was myself, while at the same time as protecting him from any criticism that was coming in, because God knows people were starting to question, how come he hasn't got a job? Why hasn't he got a job? Why isn't he doing this? And then we moved back to Italy after cancer. I stupidly married the Burke, didn't I? My friend who I'm staying with at the moment here in England still remembers when she came round to see me and I said, I don't want to get married. I'm doing this for him. I didn't want to get married. Pretty sure he slept with somebody else on our wedding day as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's horrible. You seen that? There's a video running around the internet where they're getting married, and right before, the
Oh, I have.
groom. Have you seen it where the groom sits there and he's like, "Well, I love you so much." He says, and just to show, and I really can't put it into words, so let me show you. And he puts up the video of her going into the closet with his best man.
There's several of those around, but
Yeah.
I don't think that makes them any better. I don't agree with anybody sleeping with anybody else, but don't do that. Like, do something a little bit more dignified. I get that you're angry, but that's involving everybody else, and it's not. Be a little bit classier. That's
No, I get it. I get it. Because the rest of us cheer him on, but
I
but
know.
yeah,
No,
no, I get it.
I do understand. It's
Yeah, and
the first.
we don't know that that wasn't made to be a video, right? We don't know that. It could have been that. There's another one out there where the guy had pictures taped underneath.
Yes, I heard about it.
And he actually got it. He did go through with the marriage.
I know.
And when he went up to do his speech, he's like, "By the way, I've got presents for all of you.
Yeah.
Holders. There's an envelope stuck to all of your bottoms, and it was pictures of her with somebody else." Yeah.
When I left,
I want to know about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, he left me on my own more and more. I mean, I think he had affairs left, right, and centre, but because I trusted him so much, I didn't think this was happening. He left me on my own for the entire time of COVID. I was teaching in a private school up in the north of Italy, and he said, "Oh, it's better if I'm down by the beach. It's going to be better for me." And he was having an affair with somebody else. Oh my God, I don't think there's anybody that he hasn't been with. And it got to the stage, I think, after my dad died unexpectedly in 2020. And I was grief stricken. And after about 3 or 4 months, he just said to me, "Everybody's parents die."
Yeah.
And I think slowly it was starting to make, but none of the thing about narcissism or any of that, none of that was apparent to me. I didn't know about any of that. So it's a weird light. None of that was particularly apparent to me. And so it wasn't until just before I left him that I was aware of what he was, because a friend of mine said to me, because I was walking along the beach with this dog, and I was saying, with our dog and my dog, and I just going round and round in my head, what is this? Why is he away? And nothing made sense. And then a really good friend of mine had seen me at Christmas and was very, very worried about me. And she said, "Can you just research it, please? Just research narcissism." And then she told me a few of the traits. But when you're in a narcissistic relationship, what you don't do is say to somebody else, "Yes, you are with a narcissist." What you do is you say to them, "I'm not sure, just see if he has any of these traits." And then that's when, because they almost, it's like it's almost like an alcoholic has to make that realization by themselves and accept what they are in order to progress further. You need to see. Well, when I started researching it, oh my God, I think there was several occasions I threw the phone across the room. It was like reading his biography. He was so textbook, everything. It was all of a sudden, everything slotted into place. I was like, that's why. And the really awful thing, it's still happening. They're still slotting into place, even now, 2.5 years later, nearly 3 years later, it's still happening, where I'm saying, oh my God, yeah, that's why that friend doesn't talk to me anymore, because they had a fling, or that's why he didn't want video cameras outside of the beach house, because I'd be able to see him going in and out with somebody else,
So I praised your friend, because of the way that she pulled that off. And you mentioned that too.
Yeah.
And that's a huge lesson right there, is that you don't tell them that, right? We see this all over. Hey, you know what? I saw your husband with somebody else. No, you didn't, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was reading this story about this, and now I've started to think about it. I might have that issue.
Yeah.
And that would lead that other person to say, well, wait a second, those things are happening to me too. Instead of, you want them to figure that out for themselves. Just point them in the right direction.
Exactly. And do you know the other really weird thing is, when I started reading up about it, I said, is it me? Am I a narcissist? Oh my God, have I developed some of these traits? And you start to look inwardly. I had therapy for 11 months because she recommended that, this friend of mine. And she said to me, you will need to talk it through with somebody. And the therapist was amazing. And she said to me, if you're asking yourself that question, you've already got the answer. Because no narcissist will say, am I a narcissist?
Wow. Okay. So I'm super glad that you said that, because as you're talking about all the stories of you and the narc, inside my head, I'm going, man, did I any show any of those kinds of terms? I'm like, maybe, oh God, wait, there was that one time, I'm literally, that's kind of going on in the back of my head as we're speaking. And I'm like, I don't want to be a narcissist. Let me think. Oh, no. Okay. I think I'm good.
It's really difficult because you're so worried that there might be something in you that has made me accept that kind of treatment. And that was from when I was very small. I've been conditioned to always put everybody else first and to cover up cracks. And that's where this has all come from. And it's built up over relationships and not having any boundaries in place. That's the worst thing of all. When you don't have boundaries in place, gosh, I've lost so many people along the way since I've put those boundaries in place. But, then I'm better off without them, aren't I, really?
I can't imagine what you went through, but I think that it's something that everybody should be looking at, just double check, especially if you feel, if there's anything going on with a relationship that you might have or somebody might have, it might be worth getting into. And your book, Hello Flower, a real life story of narcissistic love and invisible abuse. That's an excellent way of describing it, I think.
Thank you.
Should take a look at this and read, should be reading your story. And it's available on Amazon. And I will make sure that there is a link in the show notes, and make sure that they have a link to your Substack.
Oh, Martina, and I'm also on Instagram, Martina Gruppo on Instagram.
So tell me about Felice Fenice.
Well, actually, I'm thinking of changing the name of that. It's Felice Fenice, which means happy phoenix, because I did rise again. Yeah.
I love that. That's freaking outstanding.
I was born again the moment I left. It took a long, long time, but
Well, it didn't take that long. We're only in 2024, and you finally got out of there, what, 2021?
2022.
2022. It hasn't been that long, but I imagine those 2 years probably felt like forever.
Yeah, I think the first year I was just in shock. But, now, the first thing that you do, which is like, oh, really? I can do this? Is put yourself first. Wow. That's a game changer. And then there was other that I loved doing, which was things like buying fake vintage T-shirts and things that he always said that they were really cheap, or wearing what I wanted to wear, doing what I wanted to do, having the music up loud, throwing stuff into my trolley however I wanted in the supermarket without somebody slapping my hands away and saying, oh, you just make such a mess of it all of the time, and rearranging it. Stuff like that. Being me again was just so cool. It really was. I've traveled more. Last year, I spent the whole of the summer, like about 4 or 5 months, renting out my place, renting out the spare room in my house, B&B, And I was just getting as many guests as I could and getting all 5-star reviews and treating them really, really well and everything else. And I saved all of that money because I wanted to go traveling at Christmas. And I went traveling around Vietnam and Southeast Asia.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Cambodia and all the places that I've wanted to visit since I was a kid. But I had put that on hold for him. And while traveling alone was great, oh my God, I would love to meet somebody and share that. But that will happen to me one day as well. I will. Somebody will come along. I don't know when, I don't know how or where, but I think I need to get the hell out of Italy. I think that's...
Yeah. Do you think that now that you've got this, you've actually done the research along with writing the book and understanding some of the signs, that if you met somebody and fell head over heels, that this could possibly happen again?
No, because I don't think I would meet somebody and fall head over heels. I think I would want to get to know somebody and be sure of that person and become friends with them first, have things in common. And I would want to be sure that that person had their own lifestyle and their own hobbies and work and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you have a lot of friends that have different lives than you. Whatever the gender or sex is, just flip it over. So you said you would absolutely want to be friends with this person first. So I would think that if you take some of your friends and you think about the way you connect with them and add a romantic component into it, you probably have...
I think I'm very scared of trusting myself because I haven't been terribly good so far. So I think there's a big fear factor in it. But I think, yeah. But, it's not hopeless, put it that way.
No, you want to listen to something. I think it's
I'm
episode...
quite catch.
I think so too. You've got a drive in you. You've got this drive, and it's not only to help people, but you find a way to enjoy life and add the financial component, and figuring things out, the way that you were able to move coffee around. And it was a win, and you found the win-win situation.
Yeah.
You were able to get paid. The community was able to get schools, and the customers were able to get really good coffee. So, I mean, this was a win-win-win all the way around. Everybody won on that. So you have that component there. Not everybody has that talent.
I'm sure.
That's huge. And I read some of your work. So the rest of you, Martina Gruppo substack.com, you go over to the Happy Phoenix or Felice Fenice.
Very good.
Hey, and read some of her work because it's really good. But definitely you gotta pick up Hello Flower. You've got to pick that up, and I'll have that in the show notes.
Can I also add that if anybody is going through anything like this and wants to send me a message, I will be open to responding.
Slide in her DMs on Instagram.
No, I meant about narcissistic abuse is what I meant.
I know. Slide in her DMs on Instagram if you've got some issues about and want to talk about some narcissism, and then figure it out from there. Is there a contact component to it?
I'll send you the link so that anybody that can see for the show notes, that anybody, you can just... Is there a contact? Yes, there is at the bottom. You can add a message and then, and I can...
Yep, I see it. Okay, so you can do that on Substack as well. If you'd like to talk to her about your experiences and how she might be able to help. If you even have an inkling, it sounds like Martina's got enough experience that she can at least point you in the right direction. So, but no, hey, this has been fantastic. I hope you were able to sell your home in Italy and find a place for you to call home and then travel to your heart's content. If you ever want to go someplace boring like Disney World, please reach out. Let me know. I'm an hour and 15 minutes away. I will meet you for dinner or for lunch or for breakfast.
I'm holding you to that.
You better believe it. And same here. So if you end up coming over here to the States, I'm starting to work my day job. I'm starting to work for an international law firm. So who knows what that's going to do for me. So I might be finding myself...
Come over to Italy then.
Yeah, exactly. Well, unless you end up back in the UK.
Well, I'm just saying
Per-
that if you happen to come over, I hope I sell my
well,
place before then. But yeah, that would be
yeah,
amazing. Well, we're going to stay in touch, I think.
absolutely. No, we're not going to let this. No, I am totally. Yeah, no, we will stay in touch and we will stay in communication. Yeah. So, but as far as the rest of you goes, all that information is going to be in the show notes, links, and Instagram and the website, the Amazon link. That's all going to be in the show notes. Take a look at that. Again, it's called Hello Flower, a real life story of narcissistic love and invisible abuse. So check that out on wherever you are on Amazon, whether it's Amazon UK, AU, USA, you'll find it there, and pick it up and read the story. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always know when we're dropping a new episode. If you're on Apple or on Spotify, please go ahead and leave a review. And I don't even care if it's a good review, because the bad reviews just tell me how much that you can help me evolve this podcast and make it better for everybody. So let me know. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing adventure, and we really appreciate you sharing your journey with us. And for the rest of you, we will see you in the next one. Well, that wraps up another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. I'm your host, Brad Minus, saying thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. If today's stories inspired you, please take a moment to review, share, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create an even bigger impact. Remember, every challenge is a chance to grow. Until next time, keep pushing, keep challenging, and never stop pursuing your extraordinary.